Hello viewers, and welcome to Exploring Cinema with Brian Meadows. I, of course, am Brian. Another day in my bedroom since my dad's been visiting, but he's leaving tomorrow, so it shouldn't be too much longer. So today's review is on the newest entry to the Cars trilogy. After the masterpiece that was Cars 2, I never thought I'd actually say the words Cars trilogy before, so I guess here we are. Anyway, Cars 3 follows Lightning McQueen once again, instead of that dumb fucking tow truck like in the previous installment, and the film shows us an older, more experienced Lightning. He's the reigning champion. Of course, with old age, you have to always worry about somebody younger replacing you. And newcomer Jackson Storm, the face of the next generation of race cars, which are faster and more agile, comes into play. The introduction of Storm actually threatens everything that Lightning has established for himself, as well as all of racing, because his introduction brings in more next-gen racers, and a lot of the other old race cars that Lightning has been friends with and have raced with for years, they're all starting to retire because they realize they cannot, they can't go up against these next-gen racers. So now Lightning must retrain himself, and remind himself along the way why he became a racer in the first place. The original cast from the first Cars film all reprise their respective roles, and we even have some new additions to the universe. They're all voiced by talent such as Armie Hammer, Chris Cooper, and even Nathan Fillion. Yes, those of you who know, honestly, I haven't seen Firefly yet, so I don't remember his character's name, but Captain Hammer is in this movie, and most of you probably know him as Nick Castle from Castle. Oh, I wish that show was still on. But anyway, I will say, none of these people really added anything to it. Like, I enjoyed listening to their voices, but they didn't really help or hurt the film in any way. The one standout in this film, for the new additions at least, was the character of Cruz Ramirez, voiced by Cristela Alonso. She serves the role of Lightning's personal trainer and racing technician. I won't say too much about her character, except that I wasn't too sure how I felt about her when she first showed up. But as the film progresses, we get to see that she also has quite a bit of emotional depth, and she becomes a very relatable character, and honestly, for me, she was my favorite character in the entire movie. Just as a side note, I will also point out that this is the first Cars film without Paul Newman after his death, and the film feels like a love letter to Newman and his Doc Hudson character. Honestly, there were even parts where you could hear his voice in some of the flashbacks. I don't know if it's old voice recordings that he did for deleted scenes or what it was, but it actually made me I almost teared up listening to his voice, because I loved Paul Newman growing up, and I actually really miss him. As for the film itself, the first half, I was, honestly, I was borderline to extremely bored. I didn't care about what was going on in the story. The jokes weren't landing at all for me. Every once in a while, I kept hearing, one or two jokes throw somebody off, or not really throw somebody off, but like a little kid would laugh, but for the most part, even the kids weren't having fun. There were a lot of people talking during the movie. And the plot started out a bit too pretty unpredictable, and until the end of the first half of the movie, I was honestly able to predict each individual moment and choice of the main characters. But once the second half shows up, things start to become more interesting. I became more attached to everything that was going on, even the characters, the jokes began landing better, and the story became less predictable, especially in the last 20 to 30 minutes. There were quite a few interesting reveals and twists presented in the last act, but sadly the second act does not save the story for me, because the first half was extremely draining. The filmmakers did promise us a Cars film that was perhaps different in tone as well. They did succeed at that. I will give them that. This was actually a different tone for a Cars film. It was definitely a bit darker in tone for the first 2 acts or so, but then once the third act gets there, it started to feel like a quintessential Cars film, or more like the first one than the second one, so that is a plus. And looking back now, they didn't really change the tone of the film too much, in my opinion. For the animation, it was another one of Pixar's best from a visual standpoint, especially the backgrounds. The backgrounds looked very realistic, and the colors, the overall colors were very vibrant. I would even argue to say that this was the most cinematic looking of the Cars films. Score was once again composed by Randy Newman, and I really enjoyed it. It felt like the score of the original Cars movie, but with its own unique feel, and there were even segments that actually kind of reminded me of a few of his specific tracks from the Toy Story films. To recap, Cars 3 was not a film that I asked for, or even really wanted, but we got it, and it's okay. With a sucky first act and a great second act. It really depends on your point of view if the movie is good or bad. I feel like this will be a pretty divisive film. Now, normally when I weigh the pros and cons, if there are more pros, I will rank it with a blue lightsaber. You guys know this. However, the biggest con was how much I disliked the first act, and even though the pros did outweigh the cons in this movie, the first half actually ruins the film for me, and so for that reason, I have to give it a red lightsaber. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to me ramble on and on. So, now I must ask you guys, what did you guys think of Cars 3? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Were you indifferent? You haven't seen it yet? Whatever. What were its strengths? What were its weaknesses? I want to know your thoughts. I welcome new perspectives. Also, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more of my reviews and any more content. There's always more to come. And for more and other ways to support the channel, check out in the description below. I have I even have a Patreon account. Thank you guys once again for watching, and farewell until the next video. Bye.